So Jordan, as we go here, the last two nights have been violence in Kenosha. Somebody died. There was I've seen some clips. I'm not quite, it's hard to kind of sort out, but it looks like there was one guy that might've been part of some white nationalist group that had a gun that shot people, and then people came at him and he shot, and he's protected by the cops. It just feels like when I was watching the protests 3 months ago, I was like, it's a matter of time before everybody starts showing up at these things with guns. It feels like it's starting to happen, which is terrifying to me. How do you see this? And all of the issues we're talking out, they're all interconnected here. And with the evictions coming, and Joe Biden and Kamala, they don't want to defund the police, neither does Trump. What's happened in Kenosha the last couple nights, and all of this rallies and protests that you've covered just since the pandemic, really, how do you see things shaking out here?
Honestly, I try not to be hyperbolic, but I think we're on the precipice of a real race war here, which Trump has obviously been ginning up, but honestly has been brewing for years. I mean, this is a much smaller scale thing than what happened in Kenosha. But just yesterday, my partner, Jen, and I were trying to get an Uber in New York City. We came across a white guy who was screaming some pretty racist stuff at a black bus driver. So Jen started filming him. He lunged at her, attacked her, stole her phone, and threw it and got away. Cops later found him. But this guy was screaming, some racial slurs at this black bus driver, ranting about Black Lives Matter. And just the act of Jen filming it as a journalist, he lunged at her, knocked her down. She's got bruises, really shaken up. So obviously that's not to the level of what happened with Jacob Blake. But what I'm saying is these kind of race things are going on all over the country at low levels, because a lot of these white people who, frankly, a lot of their aggrievement is racism, but some of it is they're economically. I mean, we've seen in history when there's economic desperation, people start to blame the other, right? So, and it turns violent. So what I'm seeing in Kenosha, like you were saying, I've kind of been seeing it, and you see the chatter online that these white militia groups, under the guise of protecting business, have been chomping at the bit to go after these rioters and looters and this and that. And Trump's sometimes dog whistle, sometimes siren, is encouraging it. It just came out that this guy last night who shot up the white militia guy was front row at a Trump rally in January. So, I think that, unfortunately, I think Kenosha is a sign of things to come. And I'll tell you what, I mean, obviously I'm not saying go out and kill people, but I think this notion of like condemning people for burning cars and this and that, well, I don't blame them. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't blame them. And I think, Joe Biden is being PC. He put out a video today condemning it and don't destroy the community. Well, you're kind of destroying their communities by slaughtering black people continually. That destroys communities.
Like intergenerational, generation to generation is being traumatized by this.
Right. And the children of this poor guy who saw their father shot 7 times, now paralyzed from the waist down. So to me, I think these white militia groups, with or without Trump, I've told my viewers, listen, if Biden wins, it's not like these people are going, they're not hibernating back inside their homes. The genie has been let out of the bottle. These white supremacist groups, these, MAGA people, they're not going anywhere. Maybe if Trump loses, maybe the torch gets passed to Trump Jr. with all that cocaine, or Tucker Carlson. I think what you're seeing, honestly, is the makings of a race war. These people were racist before Trump, but with the Tea Party a decade ago, then Trump swooping in, they're here. They're not going anywhere. And frankly, I think that Joe Biden is probably one of the worst people I would want in charge of the country if this snowballs and gets worse. Because Joe Biden, truly, his nature is law and order. I mean, that's who he is. We saw the speeches of him as a senator. He basically tossed out, not the exact words, but was saying very similar things to Hillary Clinton's super predators. He could pretend that he's softer now and has seen, come to see Jesus, but at his core, he's a law and order guy. He believes in very, very, police departments on steroids. And he's saying the right things now, but overall, I mean, Trump has really, really instigated a lot of these white supremacist groups. But what's really instigating it is these murders of black men, because you're going to see more and more protesters out there, and white militiamen. That's kind of their candy when they feel like they could go in and be the quasi police.
Lied. I mean, that's what was happening last night. We're seeing videos where these guys were talking. They're like, "Oh, the cops said we're going to send them your way."
Yeah.
I mean, the cops. We've seen it in city after city after city.
In Portland too. Yeah.
Portland, Salem, Oregon. The cops go, "Hey, Proud Boys, sit tight," or whatever. Like, they protect them, and it's like, and then you see this organization NFAC, an armed black militia, and I don't blame anybody in the black community for going, "Shit, I need a gun. They're shooting me. They're killing us," and then they're giving armed militias free reign. So there's going to be some people within these communities, black, brown, even just white, lefties, who are showing up and watching this are going to go, "Wow, all right, I guess we got to arm ourselves now." I mean, like, it's just ramping this up. And I don't know that the NRA was like, thought it through, that a bunch of people on the left are going to think, "Oh, okay, I guess I'm going to go get guns now."
Well, think about it. If you're a black person in America, and I'm not white splaining. Obviously, I don't understand being white. But if I was Jacob Blake and that cop is starting up with me after I broke up a fight, by the way, I would absolutely want to walk away. Because if I stay there, I have a 50-50 shot of getting killed. Right? Yeah. If you're black, you have a 50-50 shot of getting killed by running or walking away or staying there. So it's kind of a lose-lose. And frankly, from what we understand, he didn't have a weapon on him. But I would even understand if he was walking back to his car to get a gun. Because why shouldn't he be able to protect himself if you are, in America, a target of police? Yeah. So I think that, it's really ugly what's going on. And I think a real underrated and underreported thing is a lot of these police officers on their own time, if you look at their Facebook pages, many have been caught, including in LA, by the way, actually being part of white supremacist groups as police officers. So the police department, obviously not every police officer, but there's a lot of racists, obviously, in police departments. And when they see these white militia groups coming, they're not confiscating their guns.
No way.
No. So, I think it's very problematic. And by the way, with the stuff that Trump is saying and egging people on, he's openly talking about, well, maybe we need people to come to polling places on election day to make sure there's no funny stuff going on. I'm a little concerned about, the next few weeks and election day. Obviously, hopefully there's enough mail-in ballots, but Trump is really, to me, inciting more of these groups to show up on election day to polling places.
Right. And then it's going to force other people on the other side to go, "Well, I guess we got to show up. I'm not going to sit there unarmed if there's a bunch of white nationalists with weapons. I'm not going to just sit there and not have there's no, like," oh man. And as a comic who's traveled around this country for the last 25, 30 years, people who are like when Trump won, I know all these people who weren't comedians who were shocked at I didn't know this country was that racist. I'm like, where have you been? Well, I'll tell you where you were. You were just in LA and New York and Chicago, and you didn't travel through the middle of the country the way I have. You didn't see the bumper stickers and hear the jokes and the Confederate flags. And you didn't see that, man. You didn't see the gun stores and all that stuff. And now,
I'll never forget when I was at the Young Turks during 2016. I covered a Confederates for Trump rally in South Carolina, and that shit was dark, man. I mean, I just coped with it by laughing through it. But these people, Trump has been I think it started before Trump. I think some of it was Tea Party, Trump, Ted Cruz, Steve King, but Trump really ignited a flame here. And frankly, again, bringing it full circle to everything we've been talking about. Imagine if Biden's message right now is, "I understand why these people are burning cars. I understand why they're burning buildings. I don't think they should, but I understand the rage." And frankly, police that are not immediately telling these white militia people to go home, they need to be fired.
Yeah.
If Biden would be making those points, he would be galvanizing, young black people that are out there, because he would be speaking on their behalf. But he is being told by consultants, no, you don't want to lose the moderate suburban, wine moms in suburbia by making it seem like you're blessing the rioters. Well, you know what? Honestly, if your brother, father, cousins, friends were all being executed city to city, you might want to burn shit down.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
I said this on the show. Jacob Blake is the nephew of Justin Blake, who I went to high school with. We're on the football team together. His nephew was shot in the back and is now paralyzed. I have 3 nephews. That's probably not going to happen to them because they're white. If this happened to one of my nephews, I'm sorry, man. All my hippie vegan smoothie shit would be out the window. I'm just like, I would be, and I said this, and I lost a couple friends when there was rioting here in Santa Monica where I live, because I was like, I understand. I'm not happy that they looted in Santa Monica, this nice little beach town, but I understand it. And someone just flipped out. They're a baby boomer. They got an Obama sticker on their Prius and they got a nice condo, but they're afraid that, she's like, I don't even know what they're protesting. And what are you talking about? They're talking about defunding the police. What does that mean? What are they even taking in me for? And she's someone who considers herself all liberal and Obama and all this other stuff. And she, at the end of the day, doesn't want her money threatened. And look, and if Biden did what you said, and said, I understand this, you know who he would be repeating the words of? Martin Luther King, who said, if you don't understand the emotion and the causes of rioting and looting isn't like, oh, kids out there getting their kicks. It's fucking frustration. There's nothing else for me to do. You've taken everything from me. You beat me, you push me, you give me no jobs, you give me no health care, you give me a subgrade education, and now you're shooting my friends or neighbors. Fuck you. I'm going to burn it down, man. I'm going to burn it down. And that's what I would too, man. When the protest happened here in Santa Monica, it was May 31st. I hadn't gotten my unemployment yet. And I make money from doing this show, so I was okay. But if I was just a road comic and I've had all my tour dates canceled, and I thought to myself, they looted a grocery store. And I'm like, if I didn't have this show and I hadn't gotten my unemployment yet, which was the case at that time, I would have put on a mask and a backpack and gotten some food. And I'm a 50-year-old white guy with no criminal record. So if I'm thinking that, like and I'm thinking I've never owned a gun in my life. I don't like them. I jokingly, well, not joking, but I say I'm a huge Batman fan. It's in the comics. He called the gun the coward's weapon. But now I'm just like, what am I supposed to do? Just if I'm going to live in Mad Max world where everybody's like, I get it. I have friends of mine that are black, like, Graham, I got to get a gun. And what am I going to say? Hey, namaste. Fuck, they need to be armed. I mean, I've done shows and with many people and interviewed people in the Native American community. They're like, we have to have guns on the reservation because people just come and kill us. And There's no law enforcement. They're murdering and mistreating Indigenous women. They're just snatched up and nobody investigated. So it's like this is, it's insane. It's mad. It's pure madness.
Well, I think there's also another element that, honestly, I don't even know if Bernie would say this, but some politician should say this. Listen, I'm not a lawyer, but I've covered enough of these. There was a similar thing to what happened to Jacob Blake in Texas, which I covered down there. There was a guy named O'Shea Terry, a black man who was pulled over by white cops. He drove away. They were getting him for weed. He drove away, which, whatever. Yeah, you're not supposed to drive away. But if you look at the police manual of the Arlington Police, if somebody flees, you're supposed to call for backup. What happened was a police officer jumped on the car and shot into the window 5 times and killed the man. So what should be said right now, what Joe Biden should be saying, what I would say, what is there to investigate? Here is the Kenosha Police Training Manual. Okay, I don't have it in front of me, but I could promise you this. The police training manual in Kenosha versus every other city in America, if a suspect is walking away and walking into their car and essentially fleeing, you would call for backup in that case. So I don't particularly know, everybody cheered him because he's called for a transparent and open investigation. What is there to investigate? At the very least, right now, this police officer should be fired. The other thing is
administrative leave, by the way.
Right. He should be fired because there's nothing to investigate. It's right there on video. He was walking away into his car. The police officer yanked him by the shirt as he was shooting 7 times. Of course, he'll say, well, I thought he was grabbing a gun or a knife, whatever, but it's on video. So there really isn't much to investigate. In the short term, Biden could lead and say this police officer needs to be fired. And frankly, you know how many black and brown people are sitting in jail in America, Graham, without charges?
Right.
I've seen during my arrest in St. Louis a few years ago, it was basically a jail with people in there for 2 years still have not been charged with anything. So you have a police officer on tape shooting this man point blank 7 times, has not been fired, no nothing. I don't know what there is to investigate. He should at least be fired and removed from the streets. Gun taken, all that. If Biden would say that, I mean, frankly, he'd win the election because he would galvanize a whole generation. He's not going to say that because from national to state level, we've fetishized the police in this country to the point where it doesn't matter if they're executing right on video. We call for investigations that take 6 months, take a year and a half. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And then if there is even a trial, which rarely happens, there's a 99% acquittal rate. So just like,
think about it. Laquan McDonald, the Chicago teenager that was shot 16 times. He was on the ground already, pretty much lifeless, and was shot 13 more times. Total 16. That cop only got second degree. So with good behavior, this and that, probably would be out in 10 to 15 years because he's a cop. He shot him 16 times. So, listen.
Yeah. Anybody shoot a cop 16 times? Anybody shoot a cop in the back 7 times and just get put on paid administrative leave?
It's insane. And I think this whole notion of investigations, again, I'm not a law enforcement person, but somebody's got to say, in this case, we don't need an investigation to take the immediate step. He should be fired. I mean, in the case of George Floyd, at least the mayor of Minneapolis said he should be fired and charged. He kind of, wimped out on defunding the police, but at least he said the obvious. He needs to be fired immediately and charged. You can't even get that from Biden when it's a live execution right in front of you. I mean, it's crazy. And this BS, about his record and, Jacob Blake had a record, this and that. It doesn't matter. None of that matters.
Oh. Yeah. So anyone with a record gets shot in the back. I mean, give me a fucking break, man. God,
and by the way, I've been covering this stuff for years, long before George Floyd. And it's the same exact thing. I mean, I went down last year, Status Coup went down to cover Botham Jean. I don't know if you know about that, but 26-year-old black guy in Dallas. He came here from the Caribbean to study in college. He was just hanging out in his apartment, and a white police officer intruded in and shot him dead. Citing, she claimed she thought it was her apartment because.
Oh, I remember that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been covering this long before this year's explosion of protests, and it's the same common denominator. That cop, when you looked at her Facebook, when you looked at her history, was a racist. Most of these cops shooting ad nauseum have things in their past that are clearly, Blue Lives Matter or anti-Black Lives Matter or just racist people. To me, I was saying this yesterday, but at some point, older people sometimes have their licenses removed, right? Because they shouldn't be driving anymore. At what point are we not going to just get psychologists to every police department in America and decide which ones have to be fired?
Well, yeah, that's part of the problem is these white supremacists, these Klan members have infiltrated the police departments for decades, if not centuries. And this is just so they pick their own, they protect their own. This has been going on literally since the slave era. I mean, it's just preposterous. And it's like, we need civilian oversight. I'm just done with cops investigating cops. It's like, oh, we'll let the bankers investigate. Like, you know what? Let's let the drug cartels and do their own drug trafficking investigation. Let's just see, like, give me, it's, yeah. Anyway, all right.
Well, also one more thing. Last night, I don't know if you brought yourself to watch the whole convention. Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron, I think is his name. He is currently the one deciding on Breonna Taylor, whether those officers will be tried. He was speaking at the RNC last night. First sentence was about the anarchists in the street. So we have attorney generals deciding on cases like Breonna Taylor, who was executed while sleeping by Kentucky police. So it's not just that, it's not only that police shouldn't be investigating, you have right-wing or left-wing politicians for their own political purposes of advancement that are not going to bring charges against police. This guy's not bringing charges against the cops that killed Breonna Taylor. He was up there at the RNC, praising Trump as Jesus and ranting about looters and anarchists. So the whole thing needs to be radically overhauled from top to bottom, because at this point, I don't want to say at this point, it's been this way. Black people are just target practice in America. And if I had a black child, I would be afraid to let him out of the house, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, I know. All right. Well, Jordan, thank you for taking time out of your day. Where can people follow and support what you're doing over there at Status Coup?
Yes, as you know, Graham, YouTube likes to hide us in a cave. So we do have a YouTube channel, Status Coup, COUP. Definitely go check it out. Please subscribe. We're live almost every day. And statuscoup.com/join if you want to support us for as low as $5 a month. We're out in the field. We were just at the DNC convention covering protests. Then we went to Chicago to cover the pandemic and evictions. And then we went to Flint to cover, there was a settlement. So we're actually one of the few outlets actually in the field covering things other than the Orange Man.
Other than Orange Man bad in Russia. Okay, well, it's weird. I didn't think there was anything else to cover. I didn't realize any of this other stuff was happening, because I'm just told Orange Man bad and Pelosi's ice cream is good. So Jordan, thank you so much for taking time to be on the show. Everybody support indie media, support shows like Status Coup. And of course you can support what we're doing here. GrahamElwood.com. We have a Patreon. We have Rockfin and all that. So thank you, Jordan, so much for being on the show. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Amen. Hey, everyone. Great ways to support the show are go to patreon.com/GrahamElwood, where you get bonus content for as little as $2 a month, or rockfin.com/GrahamElwood, a blockchain cryptocurrency platform. That's the future. Also, GrahamElwood.com, where all my merchandise is on sale and ships exclusively with the United States Post Office. Like my Vigilante Volume 2, The Dark Knight. We only made 50 of them. They're going fast. Go to GrahamElwood.com to support the show. I'm on Venmo and PayPal, P.O. Box, all of that, GrahamElwood.com.